안녕 친구들. I hope you've been well. I know it's been a while. I think at least a week or two, right, since I last filmed. But I wanted to welcome my new subscribers. I have a hard time believing that you guys are still watching. So thanks for continuing to watch. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to try to do much shorter recaps, especially since this particular series has been out for a long time. I think it was it ended at least a month or two ago, right? So I'm going to try to lump them by weeks. So this video will be a quick recap of episode 19 and 20 with some musings interspersed. And then next week, once I finish 21 and 22, I'll come back and do that recap and then finish 23 and 24. And hopefully by then, I will be up to speed so that when October hits and the airs, the big, huge production that we're all waiting for hits, I'll have the time then to do those, to do that recap. But anyway, let me quickly go through what episode 19 was, or what I saw with 19. For 19, we picked up really with a flashback of how Sawa was able to survive that deadly or what looked like the deadly, sword wound, as she went up to Chobonung and cut him down, or tried to. Remember the Saw henchman guy cut her down, and then as she lay on the ground bleeding, the Japanese merchant that Chobonung had been doing business with happened to feel her pulse, realized that she was still alive, and then somehow arranged it so that he was able to then hide her and then take her back with him. And so that's how we then find out that she was able to, I think, marry him or someone, of high power. And then she then became the head merchant, or the tanju, the controlling, force in the Japanese merchant group. But anyway, I did want to point out, and let me know if you guys think this too, but the Japanese merchant who ends up saving her, he looks like an Asian Gregory Peck. Let me know, because I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know Asians had a Gregory Peck around, right? But anyway, so episode 19 really centers around family. And we know that Kamchi has always felt that he just was always alone and he never really belonged because he was always on the outside looking in. Well, episode 19 really brings that home and really shows him that he may not have his biological family with him, but he's been certainly blessed with an adoptive or family by choice. And so we resume into the present, Kamchi situation with him chained and his biological mother looking in horror as she realizes that that chained half human is actually her son, the one that she's been looking for, right? And we see flashbacks of her saying, he's not a monster, as in reference to not only Waryong, but also her son, right? So, but the thing is, as much as she wants to go and, rip the chains off of Kamchi and comfort him and, take care of him, she still has that facade that she needs to present before Chowonum. And so what you see is, and the actress does such a great job of her literally just gritting her teeth and vehemently speaking to Chowonum, saying, why would I care what you do with a monstrous person like this, a creature like this, right? And as she's saying those words, you know that those words in and of themselves are really tearing at her. Later on, we find out, though, when Kamchi discovers that that is his biological mother, those are the words that he keeps hearing over and over again. And so when he actually gets released, and it's so representative of just how great of a family now surrounds Kamchi, because Teshal and the headmistress at the brothel, and his adoptive father, and Youl, and even the chief thug, I forget his name, Babangchu or something like that, right? But they all rallied together to somehow help Kamchi get loose. And I love the fact that it's this tiny little piece of medicine that Kamchi has to eat, which is an antidote to nullify the effects of the Chihon, right? Which is basically this toxic poison that literally eats a person inside out. And it seems as though no matter how strong his Kumio powers are, they're still kind of tampered down by the bracelet and what have you. So he is in essence dying, and even if he's not dying, he can certainly experience every single painful twinge, which later on in the episode, Yaoi points out to Chongjo during a conversation when she is telling Kwon that she has to go and rescue Kangchi because he may not die because he's immortal, but he can certainly feel every single pain, right? And even with Chongjo, when she learns that Kangchi, she thought he was immortal, but that when she learns that Kangchi actually feels every single pain the way they do, she arranges this kind of one-on-one tea time or drink time with Wolsun, and you see Chongjo being very I guess submissive to Wolsun until she drinks her little wine drink, and then once she does, Chongjo, you can see this cold veneer come over her face, and then she tells Wolsun never again to mess with her, and she don't ever use her, and she says, I'm gonna let you experience what you had Kangchi experience because he certainly felt the pain. And as Wolsun is now writhing in pain because the Qigong is starting to work, she coldly walks away, Chongjo, right? And when she gets outside, she then tells her maid, who is, this is the second time we've seen the maid do something because she just doesn't know how to, make decisions on her own. When Kangchi, at the very beginning of the series, when Chongjo's mother had tried to beat Kangchi and make him disappear, and you kind of wonder, was Chongjo's mother planning on killing Kangchi at that time, right? The person who lured him into that secluded warehouse was Chongjo's maid, right? Well, we see her do that again under the pressure of Wolsun, right? And so when Chongjo snaps at her and she says, Chongqing, you better keep your wits about you because this is no longer a game and anything like that. And she's like, unless you want to, have something bad happen to you, you better, have your wits about you and such. And as much as I lamented the loss of innocence in Chongjo, there was a part of me that was like, finally, she's coming into her own and she's really taking control of the situation and really being assertive and learning to survive. But anyway, so the adoptive family really comes to Kangchi's aid so that when Kangchi finally gets to the training center, safely, and he's having dinner, there's this very poignant scene where he's having dinner with the kitchen master and Song and Kwon and Yao, and he tearfully eats at the food because he knows that this is, even though they're not blood, this is now his family, and that his blood family has rejected him, or so he thinks. And one of the best moments, I think, that really speaks to the power of the actress, who's portraying his mother as well as Kangchi, is the fact that right before Kangchi returns, of course, to the training center, he has to find a way to release Yoel because by then Yoel had gotten kidnapped or tied up. And anyway, so as he's leaving the room, though, he ends up seeing his mother, and he remembers hearing her say all of those things about the creature tied up, and I don't care about that creature and all of this stuff. But then he also, when she thought he was sleeping and he was recuperating from, being tortured and whatnot, he heard her say to his adoptive father when the father had said, do you want to stay so that you can, exchange some words with your son? She said, no, please don't tell him I'm here. Don't tell him about me. And she had walked out, right? And so Kangchi thinks that she really wants nothing to do with him. And so right before he leaves to go rescue Yoel and then, return to the training camp, he happens upon her. And, it's this incredibly polite conversation they have. And in that politeness is this just sadness because that between the lines of what they're saying, there's so much emotion there and, what they would want to say to each other, but they just can't. And as the mom very stoically tries to, put a serene face, Kangchi, before he leaves, he says, can I ask you a question? Because I've just it's always bugged me, and I just, out of curiosity, I want to know. And he's like, did you hate me so much that you had to throw me into the river, or, abandon me in the river? And at his question, the mom she freezes, because I don't think she realized that Kamchi, certainly that wasn't her intention, right? When she had left Kamchi with Sujong, it was with the request, please give him to a family, so that he doesn't ever have to know the ostracism and all of this stuff. And she doesn't know that Sojong had left him in the river to be found by, Merchant Park and any of those things. So when Kangchi says, did you hate me so much that you abandoned me in the river? Just, you could see her mother's heart just breaking, but she can't let on that it's breaking. And we later find out that she certainly doesn't feel as though she's worthy to experience any sort of, righteous rage or, things like that, because she feels like any hate that Kamchi gives towards her is well, deserved, because in essence she did desert him in order to exact her revenge on Chogun and things like that, right? So as she remains silent, Kamchi, he's like, it's okay, I just wanted to ask. And then he walks away, and as he walks away, she slowly sinks to the floor, and we see Tessel see that type of reaction. Anyway, I think that's really becomes the turning point for Sola, because at that point then she tells her right-hand man that she's planning on giving the her, I guess, position over to Tessel in exchange for his help to retrieve the maps again from the admiral. And then what she plans on doing is assassinating or murdering Chogon that night. And so everything is up in an uproar, and people are just kind of all over the place. Well, by the time Kangchi actually gets home to the training center and such, it's to find out that not Chogonung, but Tam Pyeongjun, Yeol's dad, is planning on giving him the ultimate training, because Kangchi needs to get stronger so that he could beat his father, right? And so Tam Pyeongjun, as the master at that academy, feels as though it's his duty to prepare Kangchi for this ultimate fight. And you see him really, his heart going out to Kangchi, because at the same time, no matter what he feels about Kangchi, it breaks his heart to know that Kangchi, he's going to have to train his, Kangchi to basically murder his father, and the ramifications psychologically, emotionally, of killing your own father, it's just, traumatic. And, Kangchi understands before anyone else tells him that that's his, goal in life, that's basically what he's going to have to do. And so when Kwon goes to get him to say, hey, the master wants to see you and train you and stuff, Kangchi goes up, and it's really to find the sharp edge of Tam Pyeongjun's sword pointed right at him. And Tam Pyeongjun says, we're going to fight until one of us dies. This is, training. And that's how it ends. And it's just such a, poignant moment. But anyway, so episode 20 then picks up with that. And we see Kangchi and Tam Pyeongjun literally fighting throughout the night. And I think he keeps prodding Kangchi to really fight. So Kangchi gets kind of fed up, and he kind of releases his inner, I guess, beast, and he fights. But just as he's about to strike, he pauses, because he just can't get himself to kill Tam Pyeongjun. Because that was the whole part of this ultimate training, is that it's the greatest training lesson that a master can give his disciple. At the risk of his own life, to train the disciple so much that the disciple will end up killing the master, potentially, right? So Tam Pyeongjun knows that his life is at risk as he endures this or enters into this training. And what's interesting, when he fills Kwon in on this plan is that he tells Kwon, you know, a part of me had hoped that I could give you this training, that you would be the one to receive this training. But, you know, I'm sorry to say it's, you know, something that I have to do for Kang-chi, right? And so as Kang-chi hesitates, you see Kang Pyeong-jun take the sword and plunge it into Kang-chi's stomach. And at that point, Kang-chi is just stunned. Everyone is stunned. And then Kang Pyeong-jun tells him, recover, go recover. I'll meet you again at 3 in the afternoon. And you're just kind of left like, oh my gosh, right? But Kang Pyeong-jun tells Kang-chi, don't hesitate. A moment's hesitation can cost you your life, right? Because if you hesitate, the very people that you are trying to protect can be at harm's, you know, way. And so anyway, that happens, and it's really cute because as Kang-chi goes in to recover, and then Yeol brings him change of clothes. There's this cute scene because Kang-chi is very self-conscious of his, I guess, bare chest, but Yeol just looks at him like, yeah, and it's really cute. And then when Yeol finally sees it, she's like giggling and laughing, and Kang-chi's like, why? Do you like the sight of my bare chest that much? And you know, it's just this really cute moment. And then Kang-chi like cups her face and he kisses her and, you know, sprinkles her face with kisses and things like that. Anyway, mom, Sehwa, basically experiences a coup. Her right-hand man decides, basically when Cho Gon-eun, because he had been, you know, Sehwa had sent some assassins, her men, to kill Cho Gon-eun, right? Well, the coup fails, or the murder, you know, plan fails, and so Cho Gon-eun basically, and part of it is because he ends up meeting Wol-young, and Wol-young wants to know who did this to me, right? Who is Sehwa? And you know, of course, Wol-young can't remember. So Cho Gon-eun basically tells him, you know, I'll let you know, you know, I'll tell you where she is, or all of those things, right? Well, the next morning, Cho Gon-eun with his men goes to confront Sehwa about how she tried to kill him, right? And so Sehwa says, you know, she kind of like puts down her cards, and she's like, yes, I plan on killing you. And then she orders her men kill him, right? And then in a very quick turnaround of events, you notice that her right-hand man then walks over to Cho Gon-eun's side to show that he has now changed loyalties, and that all the swords of her men are actually pointed at her. And at that point, she then has no other choice but to obey her right-hand man's order, which is return to Japan. And we learn actually that the plan is that as she returns to Japan, they're going to have one of the Japanese assassins kill her and everyone there en route to the boat to take them to Japan. And so just this incredibly sad moment, and you're really seeing the breakdown in the Japanese merchant group. Well, anyway, let me make sure that I have everything. I think that's about it. And then what we see is later on, Cho Gon-eun confronting Wol-young, and he says, let's make a deal, because you know Cho Gon-eun's all about making deals. And I love the fact that Wol-young's the prize that Wol-young brings into the deal is the fact that Cho Gon-eun can live, right? So Cho Gon-eun has no choice but to tell Wol-young where Sehwa is, and so you see Wol-young making his way slowly, following Sehwa, right? So at around 3 o'clock or so, right about, Yeol tries to get Kang-chi to go and meet his mother and say goodbye, right? Even though, you know, he feels like he doesn't want to have anything to do with her, right? And Yeol tries to tell him, you know, I met your mother the previous night, and you know, she says that she's a sinner, and that's why she hasn't tried to see you or to ask for forgiveness, because she feels like she can't ask for forgiveness. She's done a sin, that she's committed a sin that is beyond redemption. And so that gets Kang-chi kind of thinking about it a little bit, but he still says, I don't want to see her and such. And then 3 o'clock rolls around, he fights Tan Pyeong-jun, and Tan Pyeong-jun says, are you ready? And he's like, yeah, let's make this very quick, short and sweet, right? And then before Kang-chi fights, though, he says, Master, I want to ask you, what is the sword to you? And then Tan Pyeong-jun says, as long as I fight and the sword is in my hand, the sword is everything to me, right? And then Kanchi's like, okay, that's enough. That's all I needed to know. And then literally in the blink of an eye, Kanchi goes whizzing around and basically slashes at Tam Pyongjun's arm so that the sword drops to the floor, right? And then he tells Tam Pyongjun, he says, Master, I've taken away your everything. I've won. And then something happens which causes Tam Pyongjun to kind of start in shock. And what it is we later find out when Tam Pyongjun is talking with the kitchen master that as Kangchi said that, devoid of Yeol's presence next to him and devoid of the bracelet, the magical bracelet that, keeps his Kumyo forces down, Kangchi had been able to revert from Kumyo form back to the human form, right? And so, yeah, you see Tam Pyongjun kind of feeling like this is definitely a turning point for Kangchi. Kangchi is ready now to face his father, and none too soon, because after that's over, Kangchi then says, I'm going to go see my mom, wish her goodbye, right? And then Yeol gets permission from her dad, and then she goes following Kangchi. And then Kwon gets permission from the dad, too, Tam Pyongjun, to go and escort and keep Yeol safe, right? So the three of them are headed to meet the mom's caravan. Well, by the time they get there, though, they realize that something is amiss, and so they go and join the fight to kind of protect the mom, right? And it's this great moment where the mom is surrounded by, her assassins, and Kangchi, Yeol, and Kwon come and they, say, oh, there's only 12, 3 of us can totally take him. And then Yeol says, no, that's enough for 2. Why don't you take your mom safely away, right? And then the mom's like, this is our business, leave us alone kind of thing. But, she secretly is very, of course, appreciative, thankful and such. Although she still feels like she doesn't deserve it, right? Anyway, when they're together, Kangchi and the mom reconcile. She apologizes to him. She says, how can I ask for forgiveness when I threw you away, and all this stuff, right? And as they reconcile, Kangchi says, my friends should be here soon, right? Let me go ahead and see if they're there. And as Kangchi leaves, the mom senses Wolyong's presence, but so does Kangchi. And so you see Kangchi backtrack to meet up with his mom and ultimately his dad. And Seowa, thinking she's alone now, rises to meet Wolyong alone, right? And she is so stunned by Wolyong, and she keeps just saying, Wolyong, Wolyong. And then Wolyong says, do you know me? Right? And then she realizes, of course, he has no memory of them at all. And the last climactic moment of this episode is that as Seowa faces Wolyong, Kangchi comes in front of her to protect his mother. And instead of addressing his father as father, he says, the killing stops here, Wolyong. I won't allow you to kill anymore. And then that's kind of the climactic end of episode 20. And so, episode 19 really talked about family and adoptive family and how Kangchi has that family. In episode 20, we see Kangchi's biological family to a certain extent being restored to him. And, we'll see what 21 brings. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And hopefully this was helpful for you. And I will see you for the recap of episode 21 and 22 next week. So until then, take care, everyone. Bye.